Okay, I know, I'm a couple weeks late, but a whole lot has happened in the past 2 weeks. But for now, let's get into the intro proper. I always see the question of what if Vegito stayed fused, and while I think that's a good idea, it's also been done by everyone and their mothers. So I decided, why not mix it up a little? Let's make all fusion permanent. That means both Patara and Metamoran. Now, without further ado, let's see what may have happened if fusion turned out to be a little more permanent than initially intended. The story starts now. Our story starts with Goku arriving atop the lookout to train Goten and Trunks. While he thinks he could probably take out Buu, he also wants the next generation to take care of him. So, before he even considers teaching them fusion, since he does know it's permanent, he instead shows the boys Super Saiyan, then Super Saiyan 2, and finally Super Saiyan 3, albeit briefly. The boys are amazed at the power Goku displays, as is everyone else on the lookout, but he stresses the strain that form puts on his stamina. This warning, of course, goes in one ear and out the other for the boys, but Goku knows they'll be able to pick up on it naturally. They are prodigies, after all. However, as excited as he is to watch the boys train, he knows training may not be enough, and so pulls Piccolo to the side and teaches the Namekian about fusion, saying that the boys should learn it too, and only use it if they have no other options. Piccolo nods in agreement, and Goku flies off to confront Buu and Babidi, leaving the Namekian to babysit Trunks and Goten. Now knowing the boys were Earth's only hope and that fusion wasn't exactly something they could rely on, Piccolo decides to use the Room of Spirit and Time. While Bulma and Chi-Chi have some qualms with this, the Namekian promises they won't be in there for the full year, which gets their approval on this plan, but just barely. Piccolo, Trunks, and Goten run into the chamber before Chi-Chi tries to assign them homework, and thus a few months of training ensue. On the outside, Goku fights Buu, and things go pretty much as they do in the anime. Now, where things differ is in the chamber. In canon, Trunks and Goten mostly train to learn fusion, but here, Piccolo teaches them the basics of combat, as well as good ki control. The boys soon surpass Piccolo in terms of strength, but they never quite learn how to be smart fighters, something their teacher tries desperately to drill into them. But no matter how many times the Namekian beats them using strategy, the children continue making simple mistakes, with Trunks showboating while Goten is too playful and can't take a hit very well. After around 2 months, the boys' strength began to plateau, with them unable to unlock Super Saiyan 2 and becoming lazy in their approach to training. Of course, Piccolo is a good teacher, and he's trying his best to be gentle and understanding, but with time running out and them still far from being able to beat Buu, he began to channel his harsh training roots. Yeah, remember how cruel and menacing he could be back in the Saiyan saga? Well, he isn't going to throw the boys to the dinosaurs, but he isn't going to go easy on them either. During their sparring sessions, Piccolo began hitting as hard as he could, treating it as a death match, minus the whole ending your opponent part. While the boys initially whined about this, all the Namekian had to do was trash talk Vegeta and Gohan to get the boys to take him seriously. With a fire lit under the boys, they began training harder to take Piccolo down, this coming to a head when Goten and he were fighting. The son of Goku had come far, and was definitely stronger and faster than Piccolo, with his form improving to the point that all his teacher could do was block and dodge.
"You've come far, Goten. You might even be stronger than your pathetic older brother,"
Piccolo yelled out, though he did dislike trash-talking Gohan. "Don't talk about my brother like that!" Goten fired off a Kamehameha, but it was deflected by a Masenko before Piccolo's hand grabbed him by the throat.
"But it's true. He stopped training, and that's why he's dead. He could have stopped Buu, could have prevented us from having to rely on you sniveling runts. If only he kept up his training. Maybe he could have even saved your friend."
Piccolo then revealed he had been charging a special beam cannon, pointing his finger towards Trunks and firing it. Goten was absolutely livid at this move. Not only had he trash-talked Gohan, but now he was going to kill Trunks, and all Goten could do was watch. He knew he wasn't fast enough to intercept the beam, but he had to try. Goten kicked Piccolo away, firing a ki blast from his feet to make sure the Namekian was too injured to stop him. He then flew as fast as he could, but the beam was still closing in on Trunks, who was frozen in place. The Saiyan hybrid kept pushing himself to go faster and faster. He knew there was something else there, another tier of power he could reach to intercept the beam. If he let Trunks get hurt or offed, what would his brother think? What would Goku think of him? They'd probably hate him. No, everybody would hate him. But worse than that, he'd hate himself for never being able to save Trunks. Goten, fueled by the thought of losing his friend, suddenly burst into another level of power, practically teleporting in front of Trunks and smacking the Makanko Sappo right back towards Piccolo. The Namekian was nothing but happy that Goten managed to become a Super Saiyan 2, but the son of Goku didn't feel the same way. He charged Piccolo and began wailing on him, not letting the Namekian get a single word out to defend himself. After beating the slug to a pulp, Goten had calmed down enough to finally talk, asking why Piccolo would do such a thing. Luckily, the slug was still alive and managed to explain himself, which of course made the boys both angry and understanding. On one hand, they disliked being manipulated like that, but they also understood it was to make them stronger.
Well, from now on, we'll take care of our own training, especially since Goten is way stronger than you now.
Yeah, there's nothing left for you to teach us, Goten said, crossing his arms as he powered down. Well, about that. With this being their final few weeks in the chamber, Piccolo decided now was the best time to bring up fusion. And while the idea of combining powers was cool, they also didn't want to be like that forever. But Piccolo still had them practice the poses just in case they needed it. Within the final 3 weeks, Trunks had also achieved Super Saiyan 2, and while they never actually fused, both boys could do the fusion pose perfectly. With their powers far surpassing Piccolo, and even Gohan at this point, the Namekian figured they had kept Earth waiting long enough, and so they left the chamber, ready to confront Buu. In the roughly 8 hours they had been gone, Hercule and Buu had gone through many episodes worth of development, but it was all for naught. Minutes after exiting, Super Buu appeared, and now Piccolo was regretting leaving the safety of the chamber. But for as strong as Super Buu was, the boys were still confident, telling Piccolo to just watch them. They flew off to confront Buu, the two parties meeting in the sky above a small town.
So, you're Super Buu, huh? Well, you definitely look like more of a challenge. Are you that brat that Vegeta knocked out? He sacrificed his life to let you live, and now you come here to die? What a waste.
This caused Trunks to charge the genie, with Goten acting as backup. The boys do surprisingly well against Buu, them being able to push him back and even damage him pretty well, at least in their eyes. The genie, though, he simply wasn't healing himself, letting the two believe they were dealing lethal damage, when in reality, they were hurting him, yes, but it was nowhere near enough to beat him. Slowly but surely, Buu started to gain the upper hand, using his antenna to grab and slam Trunks into Goten, before throwing a huge pink ki sphere at them. The resulting explosion left both boys with some pretty nasty burns, but nothing too serious. However, this allows them to reveal something as well, that they were also holding back. The two Hybrid Saiyans power up, charging a Trick Buster and Super Kamehameha respectively, this attack actually being enough to blow off Buu's top half. Now, instead of finishing Buu off, Trunks and Goten begin to play a game of ping pong with Buu's lower half, all while Piccolo pleads with them to destroy him. But no, the boys are having way too much fun, believing the genie is too weak to even regenerate from their attack. That is until Buu's lower half suddenly wraps around Trunks, binding him, while a regenerated Buu flies up behind him and starts using the boy as a punching bag.
Oh, now this brings back memories. This is just how I beat up your dear father.
Goten attempted to fly in and help, but the genie used his antenna as a whip to keep the boy at bay. He then tried using a Kamehameha to hit Buu, but he held Trunks up as a shield, causing Goten to bend the energy beam away. Finally, Buu let Trunks go, only for him to use an antenna beam to shock and fry the boy, before flying over and beginning to beat Goten to a pulp as well. Despite all the training and hard work they had put into becoming good warriors, neither of them could stand up to Buu individually. The bubblegum monster knees Goten in the stomach before throwing him towards the ground, where Trunks laid as well. Buu held his hands above his head, charging up a large pink sphere with black and yellow electricity dancing around it.
Goten, I'm sorry I didn't take him seriously. Now I think we might be goners,
Trunks said, standing up whilst holding his left arm.
Me too. We should have just listened to Mr. Piccolo.
Goten stood as well, the two boys looking up at Buu as he laughed and threw the key sphere. Goten wanted to cry, but held back his tears as best he could, while Trunks yelled obscenities at the genie for offing them. But just as the sphere was about to land, a sudden special beam flew by, sending the sphere off into the distance. Both boys were surprised that Piccolo could even do that, but a quick look at the Namekian revealed that he clearly poured most of his ki into that one attack. The two were about to fly towards Piccolo, but he held out a hand and told them to run away. He'd hold Buu off.
You, Piccolo, hold me off. You should have been a comedian.
The genie used his antenna to turn the Namekian into a bar of chocolate before consuming him without a second thought.
Piccolo was delicious, boys. I can really taste the disappointment he had when watching you two fight,
Buu said, rubbing his stomach and facing away from the two Saiyans. However, instead of breaking the two's spirit, this only served to make them angrier. They were here just giving up when Piccolo, who was even weaker than them, came in and tried to fight. Trunks thought of himself as a pathetic example of a Saiyan, while Goten thought his brother would be fighting Buu right now if he had the chance. The two looked at each other and nodded, both understanding what needed to happen. They did the dance they had been practicing for days, combining their power into a brand new being, Gotenks. Buu turned around just as a blinding light and massive power appeared behind him.
Who are you? Where did those two weaklings go?
Right here. Gotenks powered up into Super Saiyan 2 and socked Buu right in his smug jaw before firing a final flash point blank and disintegrating the genie's top half. Before he could regenerate, the fusion fired a volley of ki blasts, blowing away the remaining pieces of Buu. But of course, it wouldn't be that easy, as the resulting gas managed to form Buu as he was prior, though much angrier this time. The genie flew at Gotenks, using his body to constrict the fusion before punching and using them as a sort of paddle ball. However, as the fusion flew back at Buu, they used an energy barrier to get loose before firing a beam that turned into a keyblade which split Buu in half vertically, then forming several galactic rings to surround and capture Buu into a small ball. This resulted in a battle of wills, where Gotenks attempted to hold the rings closed, while Buu began screaming and powering up to get loose. Whilst this did take a lot of the fusion's concentration, it also gave them an idea. As Buu began splitting the rings, he peeked out and saw Gotenks conjuring these big white ghosts? Realizing Gotenks was an actual threat, and that these ghosts were likely meant to finish him, the genie began powering up as much as he could, slowly breaking through the energy rings. But just as he escaped his confinement, the ghosts flew towards him, attempting to hit him. While Buu knew he shouldn't let these things touch him, he did attempt to block their attack. And when he did, well, let's just say it wasn't pleasant for the bubblegum monster. Buu was blown to Kingdom Come as several ghosts made contact with his body, him barely clinging to life by the end of the ordeal, something Gotenks was banking on. Whilst Buu was being attacked, the fusion powered up into Super Saiyan 3, preparing to finish Buu off once and for all. However, as the genie was being blown up, he had split a piece of himself off, having it sneak behind Gotenks in order to absorb the boy. Before the fusion could attack, Buu surrounded them, but the boys figured he was just trying to wrap around them again, and so put up an energy barrier. The fusion was pulled into Buu, but this only helped their cause. Whilst the genie was happy and congratulating himself, he suddenly felt the need to burp, then the need to hurl, as several large ki blasts began exploding within him. A chain of explosions rattled Buu's body, ending in his neck as Gotenks suddenly flew out of his mouth and shoved a large sphere of ki back down his throat, causing a massive explosion to engulf both fighters. But Gotenks wasn't done. Oh no, he was just getting started. The fusion launched a Die missile attack to further injure Buu before using ki rings to bind him once more. Next, the fusion conjured up 20 ghosts and sent them to charge the genie, and whilst those exploded, Gotenks flew under Buu and charged up a galactic buster cannon, using several ki rings as a funnel to aim a large swirling ball of blue ki. Buu, who was on death's door, sensed this large concentration of energy and attempted to dodge, but the energy rings stayed locked on him, and the beam hit without fail, instantly disintegrating the monster. Once the beam exited Earth's atmosphere, Gotenks finally stopped firing it, and this is when the intense ki drain of Super Saiyan 3 hit them. They fell to the ground, falling back into base, whilst Gohan, of all people, came in and caught him. The fusion was excited that Gohan was somehow alive, but after such an intense fight, they really needed a nap, basically falling asleep in their brother's arms. Or, I guess, half-brother now. Now, with Earth safe and Buu destroyed, neither Goku nor Vegeta would be allowed to return to Earth, which, considering what happens in the future, may be a problem. But for now, Gohan, Gotenks, and everyone else still alive were happy that the Earth was safe. And with that note, I think that's where we'll be leaving it off for right now. If you enjoyed this part, I'd appreciate it if you fused with that like button, or maybe even galactically busted that subscribe button. Oh, and how cool is that name? I really looked for cool moves that Gotenks does in canon, but none of them were as cool as a Soul Punisher, so I sorta just made one up. Hope you guys thought it was cool and could picture it the same way I could. Also, I know I've been gone for a couple weeks, but a whole lot of stuff happened. First I got sick for a few days, but I still had to work, so yeah, that sucked. Basically, I've been super busy in my personal life since then, but I managed to make this and a certain Uchiha-centered script, so we'll have videos for the next week at least. Now, speaking of YouTube, we finally hit 400. Holy crap, I mean, I haven't made videos in 2 weeks, and you guys still got me to 400. That's just insane, and I absolutely can't believe how awesome you guys are. It took us around 2 months to get to 400, but that's honestly not bad at all, and I'm willing to bet 500 is just around the corner. And once we get there, I'll be able to post polls in order to ask you guys which new what ifs we could make. I'm not sure how long it'll be until we hit that milestone, but I might not make any new what ifs until then, other than the Naruto and maybe My Hero Academia what ifs I have planned. That way, at least this way, you guys will directly be responsible for choosing my next new what if, which I think is really cool. Really. Thank you guys. This script, these words, wouldn't be possible without you. Well, I guess technically they would, but you know what I'm trying to say. Now, with that, I suppose I should wrap this up. You guys have a good day or night wherever you are. That's it for now. Bye bye.